Hi kids. Saturday morning, so I thought I'd get out here and make a video. We haven't done a record player for a while, so I thought we'd take a whack at this one. This is a Crescent 45 RPM record player, and it is a little different than the RCA versions. I mean, we've seen the RCA versions. If you haven't, they're all over YouTube. It's essentially the same player. It just plays 45s. It has a built-in amp, so you don't have to connect it to anything. You just plug it in and turn it on and it'll play records. The thing that makes this Crescent model a little different excuse me, from the RCAs is that this one has a tone control. The RCAs just have a volume control. So this one's a little bit different, and you might say a little bit better. You might. We're going to go ahead and take it apart. Talk about it a little bit first. When I first got it, it looked more like this. It had one white and gold knob on it. Looked like that. And I've seen them online looking at pictures, and they do have the white knobs, or they also have the brown knobs. I got lucky and found a matching pair of brown knobs that seem to be exactly the same on eBay, so everybody I've asked seems to think that the brown knobs look a lot better, so that's what we're going to go with. I agree, I think they do. So we'll take those off first. We're going to get a bag here for parts and fasteners. I've already taken the bottom off, took the screws out. So this is a Crescent model 452A, and there's your label there, model 452A. And it has 3-tube amplifier. Put that. I'll have to try to flatten out that bottom. It's a little warped. Excuse me. It's early in the morning. What can I tell you? Here's your insides. Very similar, like I said, to the RCA. It is the same RP-190 changer. There's the motor. This is the amplifier, obviously, over here. And the speakers up here. Not much to it. We're going to go ahead. I've got some tools here. We're going to just go ahead and take this thing apart. So first thing I'm going to do is I've already loosened up the nuts that hold these controls in place. So we're going to just take those off and bag them up. And then let's see what it's going to take. So that pretty much lets you pull the amp out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just clip the speaker wires, but leave a tiny bit of wire behind. I don't think it matters since it's a mono player. There's nothing to keep in phase. And then you can see how everything's hardwired in. There's nothing. Let me get rid of this old electrical tape without cutting through any wires. Yeah, that's the problem. I keep getting wires in my way. I don't want to cut through those. Yeah. There. Alright. A little bit more freedom there, a little more room to work. So what I want to do is I'm going to have to disconnect. There's the amplifier. Cute, huh? This is different than the RCAs. The RCAs use a 50, a 35, and a 12 volt tube. This uses a 50, a 50, and a 12. A little bit different circuit. I'm going to take this switch off of the changer. You can see that right up there. It's just held in by this 1/4-inch screw. I'm going to take that off of the changer, and that frees that up a little bit. And then I'll bag up that 1/4-inch screw. And we're going to take the clips out that hold the motor in, because it's also wired into that switch and to the amp. And I don't want to disconnect, I don't want to disconnect any more wires than I absolutely have to. So let's have the garage door open, so there's going to be some noise out there. It's a nice day, you know, it's July, it's a nice day. There is, so that's interesting. That doesn't look, that's, not sure what that is. That doesn't look like, I don't recognize this. I've done lots of these changers and I do not recognize this, so I'm not sure what that is. We'll keep it around in case I figure it out, but that's a little odd. I'm going to get this last clip out of here. This one's always fun because it's kind of buried down deep underneath. Might be easier to, oh, well, actually, I guess this is unique. I've never seen this on the RCAs, but I found the other one, so they must be some kind of spacers. And then there's washers and those clips that hold it in place. Let me see here. I'm going to take the screws out, see if I can move the changer enough to get that last clip out for that motor. Let me get that clip up out of there. Okay, there's my other clip. Too much screwdriver here, but it'll do. There we go. All right. Paper label in there I want to be careful of. So I'm just going to take these screws out that are holding the record changer to the cabinet. And kind of, there, my fasteners, rubber goodies, you know, the roached rubber parts. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, now I can get that last clip off that's holding the motor in place. We hope. There. Alright, so there is that. So I have, that's odd. I'm going to have to see about this when we put it back together because that's a new one on me. I seem to have 2 of these spacers. I have 3 copper washers. You can see that. Copper washers. And of course I have the fasteners, the screws, and the collars that hold everything in place. I've never seen those spacers before. That's interesting. Anyway, first thing I'm going to do, I'll bag all of this up so we don't lose any of it. Got my little Ziploc for that stuff. I'm going to disconnect the wires that connect the record changer to the amplifier. And that would be these. They're run along by this cable. This is the, right here, this flat part right here is the muting switch. You can disconnect that. I could, you know, if I can get parts out of the way, I can probably just disconnect that and leave everything wired up. Let's try that first. And then I will have to disconnect the wires from the Tonearm. So let's go ahead and cut the, I can leave the cable connected to the muting switch, but I'm going to go ahead and I'll leave the little colored ends of the wires there so I know which wire goes where, although I can, you know, I've done lots of these and I know that. So now this is free. The changer is free from the cabinet, so let's just do 1 or 2 more quick things. And it's mostly just because there's a screw right here that's holding these wires in place. So if I can get that out of there, then we'll have this free. And I'm just going to leave the speaker in it for now because I don't want anything to happen to it. I don't want to poke a hole in the speaker or anything. So get that screw out of there and don't lose the screw. Run that through there, and now we have the cord up out of there. Okay, there's your cabinet. Now, let's talk about that for a second. There. Cabinet's in good shape. This stamped plate on the front is a little dinged up. It was really bad when I got it. I did take it out once and just put it on the floor and kind of pounded on it with a rubber mallet and flattened it out. We're going to try to do better than that. You can see the dents in it. But overall, you know, it needs cleaned. But this cabinet's in pretty good shape. There's a little bit of fraying to the corners. There always is, you know. There always is. But this is in good shape. So this should be a nice player once we get it all done. So let me set that aside. Let's take a look inside this little amp real quick, and then we'll look at the changer. Okay, it's got a couple more of these 1/4-inch screws here holding the bottom on. All of the electrolytic capacitors are housed in this can on top, and it says we've got a 60 and a 40. Pretty standard. Tiny little thing. Just real quick, I see three paper capacitors, three disc capacitors, 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 resistors. Not much to it. Should be pretty easy to do. And clean the pots. And 5 resistors. Yeah, pretty straightforward. You can see the paper caps are leaking all over the place, and yeah. Interesting. Like I said, the RCA's use a 50-volt tube, a 35, and a 12, and then they have to use a big dropping resistor to make up for the rest of the current. Whereas this is a lot closer. This comes out to 112, a 50, a 50, and a 12. So you don't have to you don't have to use as much of a dropping resistor to get the current where you want it. So anyway, that's that. So I'm going to take this and set it aside. And I'm not going to do the motor right now. We'll get to the motor another time. I'm just dismantling as much of this as I can right now, so you can see what that's like. I'm going to go ahead and put these screws back in here, though, so I don't... Oops, well, maybe not. That's alright, I'll do it later. I'll go ahead and bag these up and just set this aside and get onto the changer. Standard RP-190 changer. I have everything for this. You can see these old rubber parts like I showed you. You know, I have new ones. I didn't see any motor mounts whatsoever in this thing. I have new motor mounts. I have a new idler wheel. I have a new cartridge, which we're going to mount in this little aluminum housing. These are available on eBay. These really are nice. They do a good job. They come as a kit, a DIY kit. They have all the instructions. You do it yourself, and it makes a cartridge that works. You take the Chuo Denshi cartridge, get a good one. Get the one with the metal cantilever, not the plastic one. Get a good one on the stylus. Okay, get a good one. Buy them from Voice of Music. And you mount that in that aluminum piece and wire it all up, and it gets the weight right, so that the Tonearm wants to track and cycle, and the changer will cycle properly. It makes a huge difference. I have the weight of original cartridges 3 1/4 ounces, and you really have to get close to that, or it just won't work right. So when we're going to take this apart, alright, it's been a while, so I'm going to put all of the changer parts in here, so I don't lose, keep them separate from the rest of it. These are all of the screws that were holding the bottom on. I'm going to bag over. Take my, it's not really a dental tool, it's just some things that I bought. We're going to start by taking this clip off, and there is a spring sandwiched between 2 washers sitting on top of this wheel, and you have to be careful about that. Push down slightly and pop that clip off, and then take those washers and the spring off. Okay, the washer is just going to come with the wheel. There it goes. Okay, so you do all of that first. Okay, and zip my Ziploc here. Now I am going to have to see if I hope, have the right size Allen wrench, because I forgot I need an Allen wrench. have to get in here. That looks like it might be it. Okay, yeah. There's an Allen screw on the side of this little goodie that's shaped like a hat. Okay, that comes off next. Set my Allen wrenches aside. Okay, and then you can unscrew this by hand down here, which is under the tone arm, and there's also a spring in there too. It just unscrews by hand. Okay, and then and then you loosen up this bracket. Okay, or take it off. All right, and that allows you to take the slider out. You can see how dirty this thing is. It's really bad. Okay, and we'll get to the cycle cam. We'll figure out what to do about the cycle cam later. I may still have a kit from the same guy that sells those cartridge kits to rebuild that. I'm not sure. If not, we'll do something else with it. There are different things you can do. Make sure you keep all of your nuts and fasteners. Put the bracket in there. Okay. Then you have this knurled wheel here. Take a small screwdriver. You get the longer one. Take a small screwdriver and loosen that screw, and that pulls right off. The screw stays with it. Okay. And I think, if I remember right, it's been a while, but that means you can take your turntable spindle off. And you have to watch, because on the underside of that you have a washer and a ball race and another washer, and it's kind of hard to get them off of this shaft. And we'll get to that. So for the rest of this, there's not much left. You can leave this. I want to take the plastic switch off to repaint this, but you can leave this part of it in here. This part of it. You can leave that in there. Just mask things off when you repaint it. So to get the tone arm off, I've got one more clip to remove right here. And then you have to take your, say, good old 1/4 inch nut driver and get under. You have to get under the tone arm, and there's a nut right there. And you just loosen that, and there's a collar in there. And now that you have the wires clipped, you free them of whatever keepers are holding them in place underneath here. There'll be a couple of them. Okay, just free them from the little keepers, and then boom, tone arm comes off. Okay. And there is there's this elevating rod that goes under the tone arm. That's what makes it lift up when it's in the middle of the change cycle, and lower. The mechanism makes this rod go up and down, and it pushes up on the tone arm and then lets it back down. There's a spring under there. So just bag everything up. Okay, that little collar and nut will stay in there. There's a couple of washers that came out with that. Now the last thing to get this off of here, there's another clip this time on top that the tone arm was sitting on. Pop that off. There's a washer under that. It's easy to confuse this washer with the ones that are in here. They're similar, but you can, I think the ones in here are a tiny bit bigger. You learn to tell the difference. Bag up the clip in the washer. There is a little bearing in there. Donut, brass, copper, I think it's brass. That tone arm, that goes under the tone arm too. You got to have that. That allows this piece to come loose. It's kind of like your this is one of the things that you adjust to get your tone arm action correct. And then the last thing is you take this spring off of the post, and then this just lifts right off. Okay, and that's it. So now your changer is dismantled, and you're down to the top plate, which will need to be repainted. I'm probably just going to go with gold hammer finish. This is sort of not quite gold. It's, I don't know what you'd call it. It's not quite gray, not quite brown. It's an odd color, but anyway, we're going to do that. So I'm going to take the Crescent logo off. It's just melted in place. So we'll just shave those. I won't do it right now, but we'll shave those off and pop that off, and I'll repaint that a different shade of gold. We'll put it all back together. It'll be really nice. So let's set that aside. And there in your Tonearm is the original cartridge. This one's a little different. It doesn't look quite like the ones in the RCAs. But we're going to get rid of that anyway because it's old and I'm sure it doesn't work anymore. So we'll put our Tonearm in there. Now on the very dirty cycle cam on the slider, under all this dust, there's a clip holding that on. So we're going to pop that clip off, and then we're going to lift this off, and this one's seen better days. You can see they just fall apart if you want them to. They're just, you know, they're not. That's one of the things you have to replace if you want this thing, or not replace, but resurface if you want it to work right. And then there's a little tiny, super thin washer down here, sitting on a lump of grease that you want to get out of there. Okay, and that's literally just this tiny little thing, and it is just a wafer thin. So that's your slider. Oops, trying to get away. Good news is it's covered in grease and it's easy to pick up. Okay, so all these little doodads that have these springs and things, those stay in place. You don't have to take those off. Now I want to try to get the washers and ball race out of this. Here's one of the washers. Here's the ball race or bearing race, whatever you want to call it. Okay, that's just where the, you know, it is. It's just a bunch of bearings that are trapped in this little ring. And then there's one more washer. Okay, there. Got all of those. Okay. I'm going to bag those up. Now, we take a long, fairly small standard screwdriver, because down inside here are two standard screws that we're going to try to get to get the spindle apart. This one's working. You can see the knives and shelves doing their thing there. So this one's not bad, but we want to take it apart and clean it and re-lubricate it anyway. So take these screws out. I'm keeping my pinky under the nose. That's what the red thing is called. The RCA called it a nose. Keeping my pinky under that so that it doesn't go anywhere until I want it to, because there's stuff inside there that's going to go flying if you're not careful. So, okay, that's it. It just kind of falls apart. You have to keep track of everything. There are your screws. This center rod, it has a clip on it you can leave on there. It just needs to be cleaned because it's really dirty up here. Really. It's a wonder it was working. You have the shelves, which are these little, I think they're actually Bakelite parts that the records sit on when they're waiting to be dropped. You have two little springs that go into those Bakelite shelves that you don't want to lose. And one of them just got away from me a little bit, so I'm going to have to figure out where it went. That's not good. Anyway, you have these knives which slide in and out and let the records drop, and then there is this little spring that sits on top of everything, and that spring goes up into this slot in the top of the nose. These always are cracked. Just from age and from pressure from the metal screws. It's usually nothing to worry about. Sometimes you'll find ones that are really bad. Oh, there's my other spring. Got it. This one's not. This one's pretty good. This is the brightest nose I've ever seen. I've never seen one this bright red. Be interesting. I'll clean it up. It's pretty good shape. I'll just polish it up. Anyway, the turntable just needs to be cleaned. It looks like it's in pretty good shape. It's just a plain plastic one. There's nothing. No bling ring. Some of them are made of metal. This one's not. But anyway, that is completely dismantled. We are ready to start fixing it up. So that will be it for part 1 here, and I will move on and we will start with the motor. We'll dismantle the motor and talk about cleaning and relubricating and resetting the bearings. So that will be coming up in part 2, so stay tuned for that. I hope you found this interesting. There's another rotten rubber part. They're everywhere. And I think that'll do it. So thank you very much. Thanks for watching.